Well, they put up a fight, but once again, it happened with Pakistan, it happened with the West Indies, and now it's happened to Sri Lanka. Just when they looked as if they had a run chase against Australia, sort of not done and dusted, but at least on track, things went horribly wrong. And they finished up on the wrong side of the result. Yet again, that's what's happened between Australia and Sri Lanka at the Oval. My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live to wrap it all up. Here in the studio, I've still got Harsha, Bhogle and Robin Uthappa. It was heartening to see Sri Lanka for the first 60% of their innings.
I mean, what, 186 for 2 after 32 overs, which means they needed about 150 from 18. Tough, but 150 from 18, 8 wickets in hand. At least they were in the game. And what a start that was, man. When Kusal Perera starts hitting the ball, it's great fun. What a start.
Beautiful start. I thought they batted so well together.
Yeah.
And, obviously Kusal Perera took a little while. I think by the time Karunaratne was at 42, he was
only on 12 or something.
12,
he hadn't had much of the strike, but yeah, that one.
And then by the time Karunaratne was on 44, he was batting on 42. So, he really caught up well, and very important partnership. Both of them have been batting so well for Sri Lanka in this tournament, but they need guys at the middle order to kind of come good for them, for them to be able to win these kind of games, chase down these kind of scores.
We talked about that middle order collapse earlier, and we were just hoping it didn't happen, but again, that was the real problem. But it was the nature of which the way they started. We were talking about comparative scores. Australia were around 47 at the same stage. Sri Lanka were 87. They looked rattled for a brief bit.
It is also interesting. Maybe Australia tried too hard to pitch short. Because if you see where Kusal Perera got a lot of his runs, even Karunaratne, by the way, good player, he got a lot of runs pulling square leg, mid-wicket as well.
And when they got width on the offside, cutting it, Jayasuriya style.
So maybe they just tried doing the Jayasuriya style, yes.
Yeah. And strangely, not just Kusal Perera, even Karunaratne hit a couple of Jayasuriya type shots.
But it was a little too good to last, I think. It was a little too good to last. If you're chasing 334, you need batting all the way down. And I'm just looking on the app. Karunaratne 97, Perera 52, then top scorer 30 after that.
And there you can see it. I mean, that was at 115 for 1.
In 15 overs?
Just 15.3 overs. So you're thinking, my God, and the required rate had really come down at that point in time. Then there was a brief lull when Thirumanne came in there. He departed.
Thirumanne, I think that, it does look like it was a lull, but they were ahead. They were going more than 6 runs an over.
They were well ahead of Australia at this stage.
I think that's because Karunaratne was still going. Thirumanne was 16 of 26.
26, yes. You need someone to actually play at the same rate that the set batsman's playing at. As in, I think when you have someone scoring at a good rate, it's important to feed them strike. So even if you can't get runs off, I think if one can just rotate the strike and give strike to the set batsman there, then at least you're not allowing the bowler to bowl to you to 6 balls in a row. Right, so I think that is probably a trick that Sri Lanka missed today. The other guys who could actually support Karunaratne.
How much of this would you attribute to Sri Lanka's sort of fragile middle order, or to Australia knowing how to win matches from these situations?
Look, if they've done it 3 times in a row, it means they know how to take wickets in the middle overs. And that's because those 4 bowlers of theirs just keep coming at you. They're 4 full bowlers. So maybe that's the reason. If you're taking wickets in the middle overs, you're winning most matches.
There's a story. Have a look at that. We talked about West Indies. We talked about Pakistan. These are the scores they were defending. All fairly decent scores, but with the opposition looking like they were requiring 6.24, 6.88 and 7.16 respectively, with 7 or 8 wickets in hand. Look what happens after that.
Draw the conclusion you can. You can say they're very good after 25. You can say they're very ordinary before 25. You can draw the conclusions you want.
Yeah, you actually can, right? It does seem like that. But then I think what they're doing really well is, I think today Maxwell bowled really well. Yeah. I think he bowled for about 4 runs an over or so, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
about 4.5 overs. Yeah, 4.5 runs an over. He bowled extremely well. I think the fact that there were left-handers batting there also made his life slightly more easier.
And remember, he had bowled out those 10 overs, knowing that 5th bowler.
By the 30th over, he bowled out his 10 overs. So credit must be given to Finch for the way he rotated his bowler.
There? Because Dhananjay De Silva first 7
so
overs.
I think what was there is, I think even the fact that you said they were playing a lot of pull shots in Australia, bowling slightly short, but they weren't bowling very short actually. When you saw the pitch map, it was actually length balls that they were able to pull. So that means it must have been holding in the wicket a little bit before coming through. Yeah, so it would have probably, like it's been spongy in the Oval over the last few games. I think that just held the ball on the pitch for fraction of a second for the batsman to be able to play those shots. And once you get one of those shots going, then you know that it's actually available. So you don't really go onto the front foot. You hang a little bit back, and Kusal Pereira is someone who actually hangs back anyways, right? So, and he's a short bloke, so the cut and pull are always shots that he'll go for.
What you typically see is a lot of swing early on when Mitchell Starc and company used to do well. Not much swing on offer. We did hear one of the commentators saying that it could be some reverse early on.
There was reverse swing.
Yeah, but it was peculiar as 19th, 20th over.
Yeah, but
yeah.
yeah.
That means and then 2 new balls. So it was 10th over.
Yeah, about 8 to 9 overs old. The balls. But maybe because of the roughness on the surface of the pitch that allowed the ball to actually reverse that soon.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, if you had to, I know you said you could turn around and say they were not good enough in the first 25, but it's the business end when it really matters, and that's when champion sides step up.
Also, remember the batsmen are giving them runs. Even against Pakistan, the batsmen had given them runs. Even here, they've given them runs. So there's time for the bowlers to come back. They might have got 115 in 15 overs, but they knew that there are upwards of 200 runs to play with still. So the batsmen are giving the bowlers the runs to be able to come back quickly, to be able to come back into the game.
Yes, defending scores, and that's what we're talking about here. There it is again. Just to reiterate, with required run rates being there 6, 8 and 8 in the back 24 overs. And that, I think, tells a story of their comebacks. Yes, I think Harsha makes a very good point. If you have a decent amount of runs to defend, it means that even if the opposition has 6.5, 7 in over, but to sustain that for 24 overs, vis-a-vis to have 4, 4.5 or 5.
Yeah,
is the big difference. That's where those extra 50, 60, 70 runs matter.
Oh, absolutely. I think the fact that they have that much of a cushion when they're defending a score makes it that much more easier, and the pressure's off, and you know that they're always in the game. It's just a matter of a wicket or two, and especially when it comes to this kind of a situation, we have 5 fielders inside after the first power play, and then in the middle overs runs need to come. There's a certain point in the game that batsmen have to up the strike rate, up the run rate a little bit, and they start taking a little bit of a risk, which can produce wickets, and I think that's what they're doing well. They know that after the 25th or 35th, so they're playing with conviction, and with the conviction that even at the 35th or 34th over or 30th over, there's an opportunity for us to get back in the game. So they don't let the game get away from them too much. They stay with the game, and that's very important.
One of the things I had thought before the start of this World Cup was, I was wondering why number 4 would be important. Because I think it's an art to bat in those middle overs where you've still got 180, 190 to come, but you've got to be calm and even if necessary play it, run a ball and keep going. So the job for the 1, 2, 3 is well defined. 5, 6, 7 maybe are coming in to try and finish a game. But number 4 is that guy who scored maybe at a strike rate of 90 to 100.
Yeah.
But he'll give the body, he'll give the substance to the innings.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough of those. I mean, there was Owen Morgan, there's Ross Taylor.
I think the typical example of that also would be the way Steve Smith played today.
Steve Smith today. Steve Smith is a perfect example, actually. Good call.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. There are times when you might see maybe he pushes ahead of Usman Khawaja, but today he came in at 4, played the perfect role, but really with those runs on the board, it was the man who's now the leading wicket taker in the tournament, Mitchell Starc, with 13 wickets. There may not be swing on offer, but he gets the job done, and this was his figures today. 10 overs, 34 dot balls, 4 for 55.
How many did he get in 2015? He got 22, I think, right?
He was the highest wicket taker then as well.
Yeah, he got 22, didn't he? Something like that, highest wicket taker?
Yes.
Because I remember saying, if he can match his 20, if he can get 22 again, then forget Glenn McGrath, look at Mitch Starc. Glenn McGrath, Mitch Starc, I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I don't want him to stop taking wickets, but...
yes, he's now number 2, joins
that's
number
fantastic.
2 in World
13.
Cups with Australia.
At this stage in the tournament, to get 13 is fantastic.
Yeah, it's very early in the tournament.
It is.
Yeah.
And especially to get it, because you can say when conditions favour him, you can say he's got some cheap wickets early on. We used to talk about cheap wickets when you get tail-enders out, but sometimes when you get that early help, it can help you. He hasn't got that, and he's ended up getting it almost in tougher times.
Yep, if you've seen even today, the Sri Lankan batsman hit him for a few sixes today.
Yeah.
But he came back very strong. At each point that he got hit for a 6, he came back really strong. In fact, got a wicket every time he got hit for a 6. So, there's conviction behind what he's doing. He's bowling with a plan, and even though the ball's not swinging too much, he's making sure that he's pitching it up there. I think he's got the most amount of percent.
Yeah, we're just looking at some numbers.
Yeah. And
Malinga in his prime, now Starc, these are people who bowl much fuller rather than just banging it back. And that's why maybe he's searching for the reverse. If the new ball he didn't get it in, he's searching for the reverse, but he's bowling full.
And it just seemed as if he was coming at them. I remember you were saying, is he bowling his 14th over?
I know. I got the feeling he's bowling throughout the innings.
Yeah, but that's what Finch has done really well. He's actually utilized his resources really well. Yeah. You know, he made him bowl 2 overs up front, pulled him out, brought him back in after, you know, within the 15th over, then again pulled him out, brought him back in after the 22nd, 23rd over, pulled him out, brought him back in. He used him really well. Credit must be given.
I got the impression he was bowling right through the innings.
And that I think was just a tribute to the way he bowled and the way Finch handled his resources. So just to sum up where we stand as far as this game is concerned, we'll show you the summary of the game as well as we'll get to the points table very shortly. Australia put into bat at the Oval, 334 for 7 yet again. 3 out of 4 times at the Oval this time in this World Cup. We've had 300 plus scores. Aaron Finch, his highest or his joint highest ODI score of 153, and both those have come in 2019, first in Sharjah, then in London. Maxwell finishing the innings off, and then it was that man Mitchell Starc with good company of Richardson and Cummins, and a good spell, a wicketless, but a good spell from Glenn Maxwell nonetheless.
How good was how good was Dimuth Karunaratne? I mean, when he got picked, we said, oh, he hasn't played a one-day game since 2015. He's played, one-day game. He's been made captain. How good was he? 97 of 108. For a major part of that innings, he was actually ahead of, his run rate was more than 100.
Yeah.
His runs were ahead of the balls.
Yeah.
How well has he played?
Yeah. He kind of slowed down only towards the end when, you know, I think pressure was catching up, and I think the pressure got to him, and, you know, because I think he was very aware of the run rate and the amount that was required, and he probably wanted to stay a little, you know, ahead of the 8 ball a little bit, but he wasn't able to. I think the pressure kind of got to him, but, you know, one would think that, you know, at that point in time, if he just kind of held himself together and made sure he got that 100, he would have probably been a lot more calmer and, you know, maybe able to perceive that situation differently and give the right instructions to his teammates.
The other thing is, how long are you going to say, wow, what a player, Kusal Mendis? I keep saying it every time because I've seen him play some really good innings, but 1 in 7, 1 in 8.
And if you're talking about consistency, Karunaratne, since his comeback, 77, 52 not out, 30, and today 97.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lesson there. Kusal Mendis, you look at him and say, wow, what a player, but he's scoring once in 6, 7 innings. Even today, a middling kind of score, 30 and 37. He's got number 4, opportunity from there to take you through. As I said, probably play the Dal Chawal kind of innings, the long innings in the middle. But that is the problem they have. Kusal Pereira, Kusal Mendis, to some extent Angelo Matthews, not consistent enough.
Yes, and Matthews looked so good. The first ball he faced, you're thinking, is he back? It was not got
300 ball game.
To be
played the toughest shot in cricket. Yeah. In cricket, the on drive, played it so well. You thought, okay, today might be his day.
Yeah. And again, a single-digit score for Angelo Matthews. Hasn't yet got to double digits, but in terms of digits, this is what's the important numbers in this World Cup. The points table, where do Australia stand? Right on top, as we expected. They've played more games than anyone. 5 games for them, 5 for Sri Lanka, 2 of which have been no results. So even though Sri Lanka are at 5th in the points table, it's kind of flattering for them, isn't it?
Yeah, 4 from 5, with 2 coming from washouts. So really, they've beaten Afghanistan at this World Cup. And if I'm a Sri Lankan fan, I'm starting to get a bit disappointed because you want to be in the tournament, you want to beat some of the bigger sides, and if half your points are coming from abandoned games.
And look what's next. England at Headingley for them, followed by South Africa and West Indies in Durham, and they finish off at Headingley again against
India.
There's
a very real possibility they might lose all 4 of those, you know. I mean, they played really well in patches, but as I was saying, it's a 300 ball game. So you can't play well for 150 balls or 160 balls, a 300 ball game. And I think that's where they're struggling. They're struggling to play well over 300 balls. So they could well lose each of those 4 games.
Yep.
South Africa going to win today, but yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a pattern.
Possible.
Yeah.
Since we've mentioned it, there probably could be a pattern if you've had problems off the field like South Africa have, but more than that, both Afghanistan and Sri Lanka have with the rain and other issues. Afghanistan too have been plagued by that, and today it sort of showed on the field in Cardiff. Bit of a rain-interrupted first innings, but they ended up playing 34.1 overs and 125 all out. A top score for Rashid Khan right at the end. They were, I think, 77 for 8 at one stage. For 7 rather, Imran Tahir 4 for 29. So it was not the quick bowlers who blasted them out.
Where that game's at Cardiff. It's got short straight boundaries, right? And big square boundaries. One of them. The reason I'm asking is I'm trying to figure out whether Imran Tahir's victory run would have taken him into the stands.
Yeah, but
what a character. But again with Afghanistan, I think they're discovering 50-over cricket in the in tournaments like these.
Yeah, the highest level, yeah, definitely. I think one would imagine that both these teams go back home after this tournament and really figure out the way forward and keep probably the next World Cup as a goal, and plan and prepare their players. And like we were discussing earlier, I think if they can give quality players enough opportunity at a certain position, at certain positions, and develop them for certain positions, then they have a chance that when they come back for the next World Cup, they'll actually be contending sides and they'll improve in their cricket. And I think they need to go through that process of the system needs to go through the process of trusting players and giving them enough opportunities, because they're in a rebuilding phase, Sri Lanka, for starters, and Afghanistan have to clean up a lot of things that are going on. At least from the outside, looks like there are a lot of things going on with.
But Sri Lanka rebuild. They build a room and then they pull it down. Then they rebuild somewhere. Then they
pull
it down.
Then they rebuild somewhere. I think that's the trick that they're missing, Harsha. I think they need
to continue.
Yeah, they just need to sustain one side for a couple of years, and make a plan. Have about 20-25 lads. Work with them and say, okay, these are these are the players we've identified for the next couple of years. We'll stick with these 25. And you see potential players, like there's high quality players in that side, and if they can stick with them and persist with them for a couple of years, and only if someone does terribly badly over a period of 18 months, you say, okay, we'll swap one for one right now and see where it goes. Make minimum changes, but trust that, because they need to start breeding security within that group. Correct. And once that happens, you start producing results immediately. You give a quality player enough time at a certain position, and define their roles to them, and you give them enough time in that position in there, and you will see that more often than not, quality players start performing. Exactly like Aaron Finch. He took a little time to get into his skin as a captain, but today, what calls as a captain? Not just his batting. Outside of his batting, just the way he rotated his bowlers, really, really good changes. One must appreciate that.
Spot on, Robin, because it was not his captaincy that doesn't give you any points, but it was his batting that did make Aaron Finch our My 11 Circle MVP, the most valuable player with the most amount of points. Starc, of course, was there to perform and to contribute to their victory, but the man at numero uno was Aaron Finch. And we did have Beat the Expert champion on My 11 Circle. Remember Dada Kavada, 5 times the amount of cash.
Big score.
Just a shade under 500. We've had actually over 500.
No, we've had 580 in all of that.
Yeah, but this is a good
scary
score.
Yeah, 497 is not a bad score. Pretty much means Mitchell Starc and Aaron Finch in there. And you, of course, beat Dada as far as that is concerned. But we've talked about the Afghanistan game that still is to be completed, but it looks like a foregone conclusion in Cardiff. Everything done and dusted at the Oval. All eyes now, as if they haven't already been, on Old Trafford in Manchester. Eyes in the skies.
Eyes in the skies.
And of course, eyes everywhere around. That's the one, match number 22. But for many people, match number 1 that they've been looking forward to, India versus Pakistan. I know we sometimes tend to overhype it and overbuild it up. It's just another cricket match with one of the teams playing another team.
Yeah, I'm willing to accept it's more than, it's a little more than that. I can understand there's emotions running around, and the emotions have been around for many years, but it's sport. And what we discussed a little while ago about the jingoism, it's sport eventually. Maybe it's more than a cricket match because of the feelings it arouses in different parts of the world.
The emotions that are involved within that.
The emotions are out. I mean, he played a World T20 final. That would have been a tense game. In fact, the earlier game with
both were very tense games.
With the bowler, the straightest ball you ever bowled.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, and it is a high intensity game for India, and it's one that's gonna touch close to the heart, right? So I think this is my conviction that games against Australia are always going to be mental battles. Games against Pakistan are going to be emotional battles. And I think that's it. And when you perceive the Pakistan team and when you're playing against them, the perception is that, okay, I got to keep myself emotionally stable to win this game. Because if you keep as Indians, if we keep ourselves emotionally stable against, it's about who holds their nerves well in those games. But with teams like Australia, it's about who's going to beat each other mentally. Who's going to have a better day mentally on that given day. How am I not going to allow that person to get into my head, and how am I going to counter that, and better him on that day. So I think that's the kind of comparisons you can draw in this kind of a scenario. So I think it's definitely an emotional game that India is going to play tomorrow, but one that's important to win as well in the view of the tournament, with India moving forward in this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to look at those points, no matter whether people see that this is going to be the end, in a sense, the means to an end. We're happy that you beat Pakistan. What happens later won't matter, but what happens later will matter, of course, because it's two valuable points.
Of course, what happens later will matter. And Robin is absolutely right about the emotional state. And you've got to ask yourself, who's playing better cricket, but also which is the emotionally stronger side.
Yeah.
Because you're tense, of course India's tense, all of India's tense, and therefore a significant part of the world is tense. But who is more tense? And don't forget that in sport, a lot of the time sport is won by the fear in the other camp. Is the other camp tense too? Of course the other camp is tense. Are they more tense? More likely they're more tense.
Yeah.
So can you actually, if you play strong, as Robin said, then maybe the tension will lead the other side. So we look at it from an Indian perspective, and Pakistan, and a lot of the Pakistan coverage is, I mean, it makes us sound very, very polite.
Yeah.
But don't forget, there's a lot of tension there. So it's as much a game on the field as what they're thinking when they come onto the field. And Pakistan in recent times have been a touch more fragile.
But Robin, when you translate these emotions into performance on the field, it's one thing to say that you're going to be 80-20 perhaps in the stands, 80 blue and 20 green. But does that necessarily say that, okay, you're being raised, your performance is being raised by that 80%, or does it mean it's 80% pressure?
I promise you, when you're playing the game, you don't think of these things. You think of it as another game. Of course, there are certain emotions attached to this particular encounter, but I think as a team, they're thinking about, okay, what are my roles? What do I have to do tomorrow? How do I execute that? How do I make sure I prepare myself in a way that I can go and execute those skills extremely well tomorrow? So warm up tomorrow will be extremely important. The intensity that they maintain during their warm ups will be important to make sure that they're actually warm, and because injuries are affecting every team, right? Everyone is pulling up with niggles, pulls, strains, tears. So making sure that you're very cognizant about your body and how it feels, and if you actually feel ready enough for the game, preparing yourself for those things will be on the top of each player's mind. And then once they get in, it's about fulfilling their roles, how best they will fulfill each of their roles. Like Rohit Sharma will go out there and say, okay, how am I going to play my role? How do I play my role? And then he'll stay true to that. The more he stays true to that, the more successful he's going to be. Similarly with everyone down that pecking order, including KL Rahul, including Virat Kohli, including MS Dhoni, including either DK or...
Good you mentioned KL Rahul as well, because your old opening partner, back to the time when you were a little younger, your old opening partner's gone.
Yeah.
But someone you've seen very closely growing up in Bangalore is now going to get that job as an opener.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting to get,
Which means, right then, we're once again going to ask that question, because it was sort of answered in the previous game, but we never had a game. So now it's going to be the big game to say that number 4 slot. I know you want MS in there, but assuming it doesn't happen.
It is a no-brainer. I really think MS should go up there. And under any circumstances, it's only going to be a plus, because there's experience, there's... he's a composed guy. He takes his time. He makes sure that a wicket doesn't fall. He holds one end up for the side, which allows Virat the freedom to play the way he wants to play. And he runs well between the wicket. He's extremely quick between the wickets. DK, over all of that, once he's set, if he gets in the 15th over, per se, God forbid he has to come in the 15th over, but if he gets in the 15th over, gives him enough time, and we know that MS plays 25, 30, 40 balls, he's an extremely dangerous player in the last 15 overs. So you give him that license to go and say, okay, you take your time, make sure you're running well between the wickets, make sure you keep up with Virat, and you make sure that you run his runs, and keep rotating the strike, build a partnership, and then comes to 35 overs, he can express himself, because he's got DK, he's got Kedar Jadhav, he's got Hardik Pandya behind him.
You've picked the...
So you've already given DK as that number 5 then.
And why wouldn't you play DK at number 5? Because he is the best finisher going around within that side right now in the last couple of years. So I definitely think he has to play. He's a proper batsman. So like for like, you're
not looking at the 3-4 overs and the batting that we just...
Hardik's there for that. Kedar's there for that. Because if you're looking at bowling left-handers, Kedar plays that role. Then there's Hardik. Then 3 fast bowlers. I played 3 fast bowlers tomorrow. And then there's Chahal. And then there's Hardik. And then there's Kedar. So you've got so many bowlers. Why do you need another one? Okay. You're only going to create confusion, right?
My feeling is that if Shikhar Dhawan is available, you're picking Shikhar Dhawan the batsman, you're picking KL Rahul the batsman, you're willing to go in with 5 bowlers plus Kedar Jadhav, right? Okay, 4 bowlers plus Pandya plus Kedar Jadhav. So I would pick the better of the 2 batsmen. And that really depends on on what at that point they're thinking about in the change of who do they think can handle the situation better, because I think it's as much about handling the situation as it is about pedigree. So they'll have to take a call on which of those two. And
In the match that never happened, you were around there. What was the feeling?
I have no idea, because it was cold and we were sitting indoors. The players came in, walked around a little bit, went back in, and that was it. So I don't even know if they picked a side, because I think they would all the side that they picked would also have depended on when play was starting. So the short of the game, then maybe they would have picked different kind of sides, so they hadn't picked a side.
All right, so
Within them, they would have known who's going to play.
Yes, so also, let's two things. One, of course, Virat Kohli, since the discussion we had here in the press conference, he talked about the processes. There was the obvious questions about pressure. There were questions about tickets for the game. So he had to field all those sorts of questions. But what he also said is, we're going to see the kind of length of match we're having, as in if it's an on-time start, if it's a reduced game, we'll pick the team according to that. But no matter what, Shami gets a nod ahead of Kuldeep for you.
Two things there. One, he said about tickets. If he has enough tickets, he'd be a millionaire just trying to sell those tickets. Two, the weather. Every weather site I am going to, and by the way, the weather sites are getting record hits today. The BBC weather site is showing 12-13% chance of rain. One is showing 40-50 chance of rain. One is showing 60% chance of rain. So I think we should just stop worrying about the rain.
Yeah, I think that's being muddled with, because there's so much traffic within within those apps right now. I think they're
just stop worrying about the rain. Just assume it'll play. I'll play Shami. Because I think even if there's no rain, it'll still be overcast. I think he's bowling well, actually. And if he can nip out a couple of batsmen in the mid overs,
he'll more than nip the ball around.
Yeah, and he's bowling at a decent pace now, right?
Yeah.
So
yep, and we know that he's got a decent record in 2019, because that's what you want to look at. You want to look at someone getting confidence. Yes, Robin Uthappa made a good point about starting with Bhuvneshwar Kumar, giving him confidence. That's what Virat likes to do, stand by his players. And in this case, you're adding him to that already tried and tested lineup of Bumrah and Bhuvneshwar Kumar. You've got the spin coming from Yuzvendra Chahal and the backup from Kedar Jadhav as well, with Hardik Pandya. Perhaps even Vijay Shankar added to the mix if Robin doesn't get his way. But yeah, I can see what you mean when you have too many choices.
Yeah.
But if you're saying like for like as a batsman, we are concluding here really that it's DK over Vijay Shankar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think even the way he batted in New Zealand, that game that they almost chased when it looked hopeless in a situation. They lost, I think, by a couple of runs, where DK didn't run that run with Krunal Pandya in that T20 game. But outside of those matches, you've seen he's got the best strike rate. So he's got the best average chasing down scores for India in the last couple of years. So, you must respect
the fact.
Well,
is he a better player with fewer balls to face, or a better player with lots of balls to face?
Well, I think he's better under pressure, because I think he's able to isolate his mind and just focus on what's required. For me, I think he's such a gifted cricketer. He's had to overcome himself to produce the results that he's producing today, and he's put in a lot of work. And you can actually see that he's a different person when he's batting. He's an absolutely different person, extremely calm, very sage-like, he's in that zone. And once he gets there, very unassuming, flies under the radar. Before you know it, he's batting on 20 of 8 or 9 balls, and then, he's already on the go, right? And then you just add on to that, and he can play under pressure. That's the best part about him, right? He plays really well under pressure, and he gets runs at a quick pace even. So he doesn't take too long to get in. He gets going quickly. It may not be the biggest of sixes, but he gets going with boundaries immediately. So I think he's a very effective player. Number 5 is generally his sweet spot. So for me, that should be the way. That should be the way it should go.
All right, so we'll wait and see. But
what about the other team?
Our conclusion. We're coming to that.
Okay. I thought we said no to Jingo. No. Because I've been presented to you like this, and then you turn to camera like that, and there you are ready to say goodbye.
End of the show. No, we haven't forgotten. All we were saying was that's the end of the discussion and the conclusion as far as that number 4/5 spot and Mohammad Shami coming into the team. Now for Pakistan, they've. We haven't forgotten, of course we haven't, but we do conclude that in terms of the pressure, they will be feeling it as well, the tension in the camp, maybe more on their side than on the Indian side. But in terms of selection, Wahab Riaz was one of the talking points at the start of this World Cup. Has he done enough for you to say that it was justified?
I think the biggest plus for them is Amer. It's easily the biggest plus. If the ball starts swinging back in, he'll be a big threat. It hasn't so far, but we'll wait and see. If the ball is swinging back in, It's a weakness with Rohit. The odd day one suddenly comes in. Robin, at pace where ball is swinging in, it's always an issue. But I think he's the big threat. I'm not sure Wahab Riaz is as much of a threat unless the ball is reversing or
But
whatever.
he has been bowling well.
He's bowling well.
He's bowling
Wahab Riaz.
really well. You got to give him credit
And
for that.
it's the occasion that pumps him up. I mean, we go on about that Watson battle, but the fact is that was an occasion that pumped him up, and he likes that.
Yep.
He likes the challenge.
Yep, he does. And I think even if you remember in 2011 when they played the semi-finals in India in Mohali, he got a fifer in that game. So this, even in the way he's playing right now after his comeback into this Pakistan side, he's been playing really well, batted well for them as well. Yeah. So I don't know, as in if you had to pick three fast bowlers, I'd pick him, Amir and Shaheen Afridi.
All left-handers.
All left-handers. It doesn't matter,
But you
India also have problems against left-handers. So
has your disappointment been Hassan Ali more than Shaheen Afridi?
Yeah. Because Hassan Ali hasn't had the greatest of the last 6 months. Not a disappointment to me personally, but I just feel that if they're looking at a change, they probably want Haris Sohail in there, maybe an extra batsman.
Would you look at Shadab?
Well, again, depends on the wicket. I think India will deal with spin
because
pretty
Pakistan
well.
will play all four. They would play 4 quicks like they did against Australia.
Yeah.
And then use Hafiz and Shoaib Malik as...
So you're suggesting, Harsha, that this is the team?
No, I'm asking him.
I'm thinking instead of Hassan Ali, they probably want to play Haris Sohail or Imad Wasim. Imad Wasim is a decent all-rounder, bowls good left-arm spin as well. So, you kind of strengthen that batting order a little bit more. When you also have bowlers to kind of do the job for you there. You have three fast bowlers, Imad, and you have Hafiz and Shoaib Malik. So, that gives you, 7 bowlers to bowl 50 overs. So I think that would be the way to go for them.
And again, the same thing holds for Pakistan's point of view. The tension, no matter what, you don't look at the sea of blue.
I'll tell you what, Babar Azam is looking very good. He's still to play one large defining innings, but he's looking really good. But he's playing those cameos that Imam ul Haq can look a little bit like he's studying for his civics exam, but he's a good player. If Fakhar Zaman gets going, then the whole side starts to look different. But they're batting very deep because they're willing to play the extra batsman and leave out a bowler and banking on getting 10 out of Hafiz and Shoaib. And that means that Hafiz 4. Number 5 is Sarfaraz,
Shoaib Malik,
and Asif Ali. So they might leave out Asif Ali and play Shadab maybe, unless they want to leave out Asif Ali. Yeah. Say we have too much batting, because Shadab can bat as well.
No, but I think even Sarfaraz as a captain needs to kind of come up and he's
play the big ones.
Yeah, he's take up a little bit more responsibility. One would imagine him, as we heard what he said after the game. He said, if only the batsmen at the top contributed more and the bowlers contributed more. And he was 40 not out of 50 balls, and the bowlers were doing the bulk of the scoring.
The strike also.
Yeah, he should have farmed the strike in that game. One would imagine that he would take a little bit more responsibility as a captain, and it would only augur well for him if he did that.
See, don't forget also, if you look down that points table again, why it's so important for Pakistan to win this game. Because if they don't win this game, they've had one game against Sri Lanka washed out, I think. So Pakistan at the moment are on 3 from 4.
3 from the bottom, yep.
Yeah, they're on 3 points. If they lose tomorrow, and they'll be cognizant of the fact that of what might happen if they lose, that'll leave them with 4 games. They'll have to win each of those 4 games to hope to get to 11 points. So they realize they're in a survival game almost, and that's a must-win game, and that pressure can have different.
And they're a dangerous side. They're very unpredictable, and they know that as well. And the Indians will be wary of that. The Indian team will be very wary of that, and the fact that they're an unpredictable.
That I think sums up the entire discussion. We keep asking it, which Pakistan will turn up. Yes, unpredictable side, but equally unpredictable. Imagine if Sarfaraz and Virat Kohli have all these problems choosing. If we've had such a long discussion about that, what are you guys going to do when you're trying to pick your My 11 Circle team? The process is very simple. That's the easy part. Get to the website, download the app, pick the match. It's the big one, India versus Pakistan, but nothing else changes. It's 11 players that you have to choose, and you've got that man who's played a few India-Pakistan battles, so you know he's going to make some very intelligent choices. But the Vada remains the same, Dada Ka Vada, 5 times the amount of cash if you can beat the expert. Well, there's another expert we have in our studio, which is Joy Bhattacharya. Not here, but he leaves us with all these teasers. And what's the one he said today?
2003.
Quick reminder of the question. Harsha's been thinking about it, so has Robin, so have I. What amazing achievement came between centuries by Uthappa and Jayasuriya in Sydney and a match-winning lock of 80 by Brian Lara? Quickly get to the answer. and it's Australia's 21-win record streak in ODI cricket, which was nowhere close in second place in terms of the next highest being 10. So appropriate that we should do it on a day when Australia had such a convincing win
Joida's answer
over
is
Sri
also
Lanka.
confusing.
Oh, that was another teaser. Who's our winner for today? Because this was a tough one. Who came up?
Yes, welcome back, my friend. Welcome back. It's good to see your name on that screen, Rohit.
Is he still
Well
allowed?
done.
I thought we decided to block him.
No,
No, I'm so glad.
I mean, you can't block him.
Harsha, we missed him for the last 4 or 5 days.
You
I'm
can't
like,
tell him you're blocking
The
him.
only
but
thing
you-
we decided to do, Harsha, was
Yeah.
tell him that he could become joint quiz master with Joy and give us a
Yeah.
few questions.
Just hacking
with,
into Joy's email.
yeah, I know. And with
you know, he always turns up and Joida isn't here on these couches.
So you think
I'm telling you, I have
think it's Joy by another name? There he is.
Yes, I think that is. I think
where are we headed? Where are we headed? I mean, this was meant to be a serious India versus Pakistan intense preview, and it's turned out to be a bit of fun and games, which
Joy's
is what we
other
like
name.
here.
I will tell you though, if you're picking a team tomorrow on my 11th circle, don't get into a situation where you've got Wahab Riaz and you don't have Hardik Pandya, but someone else does, and you're hoping that Wahab Riaz
I know,
gets Hardik Pandya.
that always-
Don't get that.
But I waited till the end because I was hoping somebody else would kind of spot the fact that I haven't got off my high horse, which is otherwise known as the My 11 Circle Expert Couch.
They didn't even notice.
Yeah,
I know they didn't
didn't
notice.
either.
What's different
They
about
don't
it?
care.
Yeah.
They just don't care. But
What are those two balls doing there? You forgot to put them away?
200. Can we clip that out of the show? Yeah, it's right. We can't clip that out of the show. 250 was my prediction. Sri Lanka got 247. Hence, I stay on the My 11 Circle Expert Couch. But just
Hence
enough.
the balls by the side.
This is going out of control. I think we quickly need to wrap up the show. Thank you, Robin. Thank you,
Thank
Harsha.
you.
We'll see you for the big one. It's the Sunday fiesta. India versus Pakistan. My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. We like to have a laugh. That's all from us.
Beside himself.